My name is Helen and I'm a placements advisor in the placements team as part of the careers service at Newcastle University. I'm going to take you through this presentation that covers all of the steps you need to take before going out on placement. If you have any questions about the content, please do get in touch with us at any point at cs.placementyear@ncl.ac.uk. There are a number of areas that we'll cover in this presentation. Firstly, I'll take you through the resources that you'll need to look at before you go out on placement. You'll get a chance to meet the teams who will support you throughout your placement and the points of contact we'll have with you throughout the year. There'll be information about registering for your placement year, tuition fees, student finance, accommodation and health and safety while you're on placement. There'll also be some information about the different types of working, so working from home or working on site. We have a number of resources that sit alongside this presentation that will help you prepare for your placement. There's a checklist of tasks taken from this presentation that you'll need to complete. We've also designed a Be Placement Ready resource. This was designed with input from past placement students, members of the careers service and wellbeing teams, and is there to provide you with information that will help guide you through your placement. There's some really good information in there about workplace etiquette, tips on wellbeing and much more, so definitely check that out. The placements team will be there to support you throughout your placement. We can offer help and guidance on a range of topics, making sure you make the most out of your placement experience. For more information, go to the ongoing support section of the Be Placement Ready resource mentioned in the previous slide. So the placements team is made up of Leslie Wilson, who is our Student Employment and Placements Manager. We have Tom Meadows and myself, Helen Robertson, who are placements advisors. We have Jack Robinson, who is our placements coordinator, and Kate Hastings, who's currently out on maternity, whose position I'm covering for, who is also a placements advisor. She'll be coming back to the team in January in 2021. In addition to the support from the placements team, you'll also receive support from the NCL 3000 module team. This is made up of Salome Bolton, Gigi Herbert, Gillian Mabbitt and Gail Leach. You will be assigned a module tutor who will mark your assignments and give you written and verbal feedback as part of the NCL 3000 module. We will be in touch with you at various stages throughout your placement via emails, calls and face-to-face where possible. We'll send you a lot of important information via email before you start your placement and then throughout the year. You'll receive information we need you to share with your supervisor when you start your placement, so please make sure you know what you need before your first day. Your personal tutor, along with others from your school, will be in touch with you at points throughout the year, so it's really important that you keep up to date with your university emails. Once you've started placement, please provide us with your work email when prompted. We've found this is the easiest way to keep in touch with you while you're out on placement. We also recommend that you redirect your university emails to an account you'll check more regularly. Find out a step-by-step guide in the notes below. You'll be invited to a one-to-one chat with the placements advisor, so that's either myself or Tom, within the first few months of your placement. We found this is a really good way of hearing about how your placement's going so far and help with any challenges that may have come up. These chats can be carried out over the phone or video chat depending on what your preference is. There'll also be an option for you to have an optional one-to-one throughout the year, so please look out for an invitation to one of those. We'll also be in touch to arrange a one-to-one with you and your module tutor for you to get feedback about your assignments. But please do feel free to get in touch with us outside of these scheduled times if something comes up you'd like to discuss. You'll be required to attend 3 workshops carried out virtually. You'll be invited to one of our Be Placement Ready workshops before you start placement, where you'll get information and advice about starting a new role, we'll carry out a skills activity, and you'll get to meet the placements team along with other placement students. We'll also invite you to an on-placement workshop within the first few months of you starting your placement. This workshop was designed to help you reflect on the skills that you developed so far, as well as the ones you'd like to develop through the remainder of your placement. There will also be a workshop near the end of your placement where we'll look back on the skills you've developed and help you understand how to use them in the future. This is also a great opportunity for you to ask any questions about transitioning back to university. So staying in touch. If there's anything that comes up outside of the scheduled points of contact, please do get in touch. We can help with a wide range of things, offering support and guidance to help you navigate situations inside and outside of work. Don't let a problem get too big. Get in touch as soon as possible and we can help. You'll need to register for the academic year through S3P when prompted via email around the beginning of September. It's really important that you do this as soon as possible, whether you've started your placement or not, as until you do this, you may not be able to access module materials and documents that you'll need via S3P. This also means that if you haven't registered, it means that you haven't officially begun on our records, so please do this as soon as possible. Unlike other years, you'll not need to scan your smart card on campus to complete the registration. As this is a formalised year of your degree, you'll pay a tuition fee for your placement year. If you started your course in the academic year of 2018-19 or later, you'll pay the tuition fee of £1,385. If you started the course after 2015 but before 2018, you'll pay the tuition fee of £1,025. If you usually get a tuition fee loan from Student Finance, you will still have access to this in the usual way. It is essential that you tell Student Finance that you are taking a placement year so they can pay the right tuition fee. Make your application as early as possible if you haven't already. So UK students with a placement can apply for a maintenance loan which is non-income assessed, and the amount is dependent on where you're living, either at home, elsewhere or in the UK. If you're doing an unpaid placement in the UK, some placements are eligible for income assessed maintenance loans, so please find out more information about that in the link provided. So as you can see from the table, when it comes to a non-income assessed loan, your payments are going to be quite a lot lower than, say, the top end of an income assessed loan. So if you're used to that, it's definitely something to factor in. It's also important to factor in whether your placement is unpaid, low paid, or depending on where you're living and what the costs will be. The maintenance loan will be paid in 3 instalments across the year. When you're completing your student finance application, please bear in mind where you're going out on placement while you do this, and answer the questions accordingly. There's also a few steps we need you to take to make sure you're going to get paid the right amount on time. So first of all, make sure you're choosing the right 4 or 5 year version of your course. So for example, if you were doing a 3 years undergraduate maths degree, it would now be a 4-year version with placement year in the title, so mathematics with placement year. When you're applying, you need to do this before the end of May ideally. This is to make sure you get the first payment on time. So we need you to check your bank on the 24th of August. If you haven't been paid, contact Student Finance immediately. Managing your money on placement can be very different to a normal year at university. Hopefully for most of you this will be easier rather than harder, but if you're taking an unpaid placement or living in an expensive area, it can be challenging. You need to be confident that you can cover any costs for the duration of your placement. So we recommend that you complete a budget at this stage to make sure you're on track with your plan. Although you might have to wait to find accommodation, we recommend at this stage that you look at the average rental prices for where you'll be living. Remember that you don't need to factor in council tax because you'll still be a registered student. You'll need to print off a council tax exemption form from S3P this academic year, so please do that as soon as possible. If you have any concerns or need any help, contact us or Student Wellbeing for advice. It is up to you to arrange your accommodation for while you're out on placement. We are aware that this might have been made more complicated due to the impacts of COVID-19. We recommend that if you're unsure about what to do, that you liaise with your placement company to discuss your plans before making any financial commitments. When looking for accommodation, make sure you do your research about the best places to live, and always use a reputable website when looking for accommodation or house shares. When it comes to health and safety, the university have a duty of care for you while you're on placement. With this in mind, we've taken a number of checks to ensure your placement employer is following legal requirements to ensure your safety. Please get in touch with us if you'd like to see a copy of the risk assessment that we carry out with your employer. While you're on placement, your employer will have the primary responsibility for your safety. It is your responsibility, however, to follow all health and safety procedures set out by your employer to ensure your job is done safely, especially when you're working in a high-risk environment. You should have some health and safety training as part of your induction when you begin your placement, no matter on your working environment. This may be more or less in-depth depending on the type of work you do. If you have any concerns about something not being right, speak to your supervisor immediately or contact us. Over the next few slides, we're going to be looking at different kinds of working arrangements and hear from past placement students along with some of my colleagues from the Career Service about tips and advice for your placement. Due to the impact of COVID-19, many companies have had to adapt their ways of working. This might mean that throughout your placement that you work from home, work on site following government guidelines, or a combination of the two. It's important that you understand what is expected of you before you start your placement. Contact your placement employer to find out more information. When working from home, it's important that you have the best possible setup. Your employer should be in touch with you to see if you have everything you need, so it's important to communicate with them early on what equipment and programs you'll need to do your job effectively. We recommend finding a light, quiet spot in your house with a desk or table, office chair, keyboard and mouse if possible. Getting a riser if you're going to be using a laptop is also a really good idea. It's important to manage your time effectively while working from home. Talk to your line manager to see what is required of you and establish a good routine with them. It's also really important to have good communication with your line manager, wider team and organisation while you're working from home. Your new colleagues may have different ways of working or a varied routine, so talk to your line manager about the best way of staying in touch with them while you're on placement. When you're working from home, you may be required to do some video calls. Try and make sure you have a light, quiet place to work from. It's good to consider what's in your background and the positioning of your camera while you're on these calls. Some of you will be starting your placement on site, whereas some of you will be expected to transition from working from home to back to the office at some point in the future. There's some points we need you to factor in to make sure you are working safely. So, are you complying with the most recent government guidelines? At the moment, that's social distancing, so make sure you ask for clear instructions about social distancing from your employer. Also, making sure you have the right PPE, so that's personal protective equipment, to make sure you're doing your job safely. Also, if it's not already been factored in, see if there's any potential to do some working from home days. If you feel you do not have the right information or equipment to do your work safely, please talk to your line manager as soon as possible or contact us at cs.placementyear@ncl.ac.uk. We've asked past placement students, along with colleagues from the Career Service, to share their tips for your first day of placement. They've said to consider your outfit. So it's always good to look smart and presentable, whether you're going to be working from home and doing video calls, or whether you're going to be going on site. If you're unsure what to wear, always ask your line manager if there's a dress code. So it's always good to have a pen and paper handy, whether you're going to be working from home or working on site, to make sure you can take any notes. It's really good to see what food you've got in the house the day before to make sure you've got breakfast and lunch planned. You could ask your line manager if there's any applications you need to download. So if you're working from home, that would be any video conferencing apps, for example, or if you need to take any documentation in, like driving license or passport if you're going to be going on site. Finally, it's always good to plan your introduction. So ask your line manager if there's a standard way within the organisation which people introduce themselves to the wider team. So we asked some of our past placement students to share their thoughts on their placement experience. Toby, who did an environmental science degree, went to Northumbrian Water for his placement, and he said, "You are not expected to know everything nor be a complete expert of the employment sector your placement fits into. Your placement offers many new and exciting opportunities and should be seen as a journey of personal development, self-discovery and networking." So this is some really good advice from Toby and something we hear a lot from other placement students, that expectation that you're meant to know everything on your first day. I think the best thing to learn from this is don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question when you first start work. Amy, who's a politics and history student who did her placement at Newcastle University, said, "My placement year has given me a real insight into the world of work. Because of this, I feel much more confident in myself and my abilities and think this will be invaluable when it comes to finding work after graduation." So that's some really good insight from Amy and a really good way of looking at your placement. So you might be doing something that's related to your degree, but you may not be, and you may be doing something that you will then go on to do after you graduate, but again, you might not be. But whatever you do, you're going to be getting some really good experience that you can use as real world examples when it comes to applying for jobs in the future. Ellie, a philosophy student who was a teaching assistant in Spain for her placement, said her placement was the scariest but most amazing year, a chance to find out as much about yourself as the job itself. So I really like this quote from Ellie. We do hear it a lot from other placement students. We do hope that this is going to be an amazing year for you, but we do appreciate that it can be overwhelming or quite daunting to go out on placement. If you have any concerns, please do get in touch with us and we can talk them through with you. So we've reached the end of the presentation. If you have any questions about the content in this resource, please do get in touch with us at cs.placementyear@ncl.ac.uk. Please also use the checklist that you can find in Teams to work through all the tasks you need to do before going out on placement. And finally, a massive congratulations on getting a placement from me and the rest of the team.